Hiroja Shibe here with another episode, another thought, if you will, about what's going on in space. I wanted to talk about something that isn't quite prominent in the news as maybe it should be, but I think it's an indicator, not necessarily a extreme version of the analogy of canary in the coal mine, but just a little hint of behavior that's about to come. So in the country of Bulgaria, which is in Europe, they had, with a joint European task force effort to nab some, dark market drug runner people. Excuse me. They seized 213,000 plus Bitcoin. This occurred last year, very early last year. And at the time was like within the millions. Now, at 18K, it's around $3.9 billion. Now with all law enforcement, whether you agree with the whole drug war or anything like that, it is occurring. But with any court case, it takes time. You got to process the evidence. You have trial dates. You have further investigation, other leads to go down, properties taken in. So by the time a lot of these cases get processed, it does take a year or 2 years before it even hits the court in many cases. Not all cases, but many cases. And it broke around December, really, early December, that the Bulgarian government became aware of the value of the Bitcoin they had in holding. And this news broke the same week that the country itself, where the banks shut down Bitcoin exchanges. A couple of them are up, but they no longer have banking relationships with some of the more favorable Bitcoin bank within their countries. It was a weird conflicts of events. So this broke in December, and people were kind of talking about, what Bulgaria should do. I said, they should put it as a sovereign wealth fund. Some are saying they would pay like 1/5 of their debt. They could actually literally crash the market, because 2,113K plus Bitcoin that they have in holding is literally 0.1% of the total supply of Bitcoin. I think currently the actual supply that exists in Bitcoin, I think it's like 3.8% of the Bitcoin currently in circulation. Its value again in USD is $3.9 billion. But I think the bigger price gain is the fact of the amount that they have. That they have 213K plus in Bitcoin. That if they were to hold it, it represents 1% of the supply. It has a high value as far as circulation goes. So that's 213K plus of Bitcoin that's not going to be out in the market right now, at least in the immediate future. But what's funny, it was interesting that broke last year, was part of the joint task force with the European, I forget what the agency was, is they're going to the Bulgarians and they're like, hey guys, that Bitcoin, we haven't received some of it. I guess they were supposed to process or submit some of it to the European Commission, or break off some of it I'm not sure how the European, I know here in the States when it comes to what was called fortune seizures or asset seizures, when they seize property involved in the crime, I think asset forfeitures are the ones where they actually try the property as a criminal act, where somehow a car is capable of committing a crime. That's why they can seize it from you and get around eminent domain and other protections in the U.S. Constitution and seizing people's property. But they can also seize property in the course of a criminal investigation. I think that's a different mechanism. But here in the States, they typically have police auctions after the trial goes on. If the property is not stolen and it doesn't need to be returned to its rightful owners, then it goes up to auction. It's kind of an automatic process. Is something that's done. Now there's cases, particularly when it comes to fortune assets seized, that law enforcement has been known to keep, whether it be the money or items or cars or something like that, or even houses, and misappropriate that. All sorts of shenanigans. It's a big old mess. But typically in the typical process, it goes up to auction and sold. That's what happened to the amount of Silk Road coins that the U.S. government was able to seize from the Silk Road marketplace. Most people don't realize that they were only able to access only half of the alleged amount associated with the Silk Road marketplace. And people say, well, if they kept it or held it or whatever, you know, it'd be in the billions, which is true. But the point of all of this is that, you know, the Bulgarians got this conversation from one of the European police task force saying, hey, about the Bitcoin, you know, hey, you need to break off some of that to us for the purposes of, you know, selling or whatever. And the Bulgarians were like, what Bitcoin, bro? And they're like, you know, the Bitcoin from the, you know, we were busting down doors, knocking people's heads off, putting them in arrest, and it was seized. And the Bulgarians were like, do you know about this Bitcoin? And the European guys were like, yeah, the Bitcoin seized from the big old case that we did. And the Bulgarians were like, Bitcoin. What is that? And the guys in the European like, yeah, the Bitcoin, the 213,000 plus K Bitcoin. And they're like, I am not sure what this Bitcoin is, but are you sure it's 213K Bitcoin? So there's a big dispute going on about this Bitcoin, which the Bulgarians have it, but it would be interesting to see how many alphabet soups pressure the Bulgarian government to either hand over some of the Bitcoin to the different types of agencies that were part of this joint task force, and two, pressure Bulgaria to sell this asset, or three, some other government shenanigans. I hope personally, that the Bulgarians keep going, this Bitcoin, what Bitcoin are you talking about? I don't have any on me, Bitcoin, and hold it. I hope they hold it for a very long time, because the more people that are asking you about something, the more people that are pressuring you to do something about something, increases the value of the thing or the action you're supposed to be doing. Whereas the correct action or the right action or a wrong action or an indifferent action, it shows the value of the necessary need for that action. And I hope the Bulgarians hold it. I personally hope they put it in a sovereign wealth fund and don't touch it for maybe 10 years. Maybe break off a small chunk for either infrastructure, building up, I don't know, Bitcoin as or cryptocurrencies in general as a mechanism within their country, pay maybe some of that little bit of that debt or whatever, but in general just to kind of mess with the rest of the European countries or agencies involved, primarily because Bulgaria has been one of those countries, many of these European countries that have been just kind of throughout the ages just been kind of battered around and taken over and pushed over, part of this empire, part of that empire, part of this or that over the years, and they're now, you know, after a good chunk of while, been able to be their own self-sufficient country. For them to have an asset, particularly a very valuable asset, an asset that's going to increase in value over time, an asset that's part of the future, whether Bitcoin ends up being like the number one cryptocurrency or the number one global distributed monetary system, it is the way forward, really. And already we're seeing some of the crumbling of certain infrastructures within banking and within governments and the financial system, just by if you really look at it, the very small marketplace that Bitcoin possesses is already causing havoc, which speaks more to the current economic system that we are in, that we've always known is corrupt, that we've always known is just a bunch of bullshit, but for it to crumble so easily, where you basically it's just like not even the big bad wolf at the straw house only doing one blow. It's like the wind came by, like a nice gentle wind, and everything crumbled. You know, a building collapsing of that nature, where it's like, you know, not even an earthquake or anything. It just happened one day, because I think it was I saw a story where, I'm not sure it was Shanghai, but I know it was somewhere in Southeast Asia, where they built a building, they built it fast, it wasn't up to code, it was very kind of shady. But one of the biggest problems with the building was when the architect uh, designed and conceived the building, he didn't factor furniture. He didn't factor the load that the building had to hold in order to be a building. As a result, people died. So that type of an error. I don't think that's really what's necessary going on. I think what you're having is you have like a lot of, if you ever had to leave an apartment place or your rental place and you had to clean everything up and you want to get your deposit back, and you're like basically slapping like the little white gooey stuff on the walls to kind of cover up the holes, or maybe you go to do the audacious practice of maybe painting the apartment again yourself instead of being charged for that. I think there's a lot of that little white gooey scalping stuff all over the place, where there's big chunks of the economic structure that really has nothing there. All it is just scalping. There's no wood, there's no mortar, there's no brick, there's nothing. It's just a big scalping, just binding there, and we're really finding it out in a very rapid pace instead of gradually, like 5 or 10 years, where Bitcoin takes over these different types of financial markets, or pushes these financial markets in different directions. We're seeing it like a rapid collapse. I don't know if this is by design. I don't know if people are just pulling their chute and using Bitcoin as an excuse. I'm not sure, but I do think that this is just an indicator with the fact that unlike previous seizures of different dark market or drug guys, that you're actually having other agencies outside of a country knocking on somebody's door and asking for that Bitcoin. So we'll see how this story develops. I'm rooting for the Bulgarians. I hope they keep doing what Bitcoin gained, and it'd be interesting to see how many more agencies come on board, how many more countries kind of assist, either through the back door or publicly asking for this Bitcoin. I would love to see what their legislation does in discussion of what they should be doing for this Bitcoin, because currently at this point, even though they've seized this property and they probably have done sales of criminal property in the past, they don't have the mechanism, much like I think it was like either Sweden or the Netherlands had the same issue, or even here in the States with the U.S. Marshal Service the first time over. It took them a while to figure out how they were to properly sell this particular asset. They eventually did sell. All of them had to go through this process. Even Australia, I think, had some seized Bitcoin and stuff like that. So it'd be interesting to see, maybe the Bulgarians will drag their foot a little bit as the price rises. Rises and falls, but the value increases, particularly with the forks. This seizure occurred before the Bitcoin Cash fork. It occurred before any of the other forks, so any airdrops or anything like that could factor in, even if it's a small percentage. That's still value assets that they could, in essence, sell. Maybe if they do it right, sell that first before actually selling the actual Bitcoin itself. And it might be a while for them to be able to sell that, because they have to think of all, in essence, not necessarily what they are, but the dividends of the property they have. But that's my thoughts. I think, we need to really watch and focus this case and kind of see who shows up at Bulgaria's door, who starts knocking. Will big institutions start knocking? Will other Bitcoin companies come to Bulgaria and say, hey, we can help you with that? Would other financial agencies or will other law enforcement agencies that are part of this case come knocking on their door? Will the European Commission get involved? Because Bulgaria is a European member. Will stuff get taken from them because they're not as quick to sell or part away with the Bitcoin? So we'll see. I think it's going to be an interesting case because, like I said, the more people pressure you, whether it is the right thing to do or not, or the wrong thing, or to commit an action, increases the value of that action, the need, if you will. and it'll be interesting to see, like I said, what happens from here on out. So that's it. That's my first vlog video. Wanted to talk about Bulgaria and the 213k plus Bitcoin they seize. That's 1% of the total supply of Bitcoin that will ever exist. I think it's currently like 3.8% of the current circulation, and it's valued around 3.9 billion at the last price check I did, where Bitcoin was above 18k. So hope you all had a good holiday. Hope you have a good new year. This is the year of the Doge. The Chinese New Year, February 16th, will be the year of the dog. So let's go rooting for Doge, which is now a cent again. It's been kind of bouncing back and forth of being a cent and not a cent. So we'll see how Dogecoin goes. I hope it's not just another pump and dump. I hope it's more sustainable, and it pushes up there, and people kind of see the value of our community and the value of Dogecoin. Excuse me, but more importantly, whether or not you actually have to have inflation built into your economic system to propel spending. That's been an economic theory for a very long time, and maybe Dogecoin and a couple other coins, but Dogecoin might be a test case to see whether or not that actual economic principle is valid or not. We'll see. Really don't care, really. You know, one Doge equals one Doge to me. So that's it. Thanks for listening. Like, subscribe, and share. And until next time, this is Hiroja Shibe with our little Hiroja Thought Bubble.